listening to Muad Dib, the podcast about Doomtown Reloaded. Today, the dudes talk about some upcoming tournament events in the Servitor series and also discuss their first experiences with 2 of the 4 Servitor cards. Also, it's episode 22. Sorry for the mix-up, guys. Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Muad Dib. My name is Michael.
And my name is Hans.
Okay, Hans, let's get started. So, how booted are you?
Actually, as usual, very booted.
How so?
Because it's like midnight.
Yes. We record extraordinarily late.
Yeah, not in every time zone, but in ours.
Yeah, we tried to get in some Doomtown Reloaded games first with the Servitors. And it turns out there's a lot of text on the Servitor cards.
Yeah, it is.
So the matches took a bit longer than usually, I think.
Yeah, but actually the text is long, but it's quite easy to grasp.
Yeah, they do a very specific thing most of the time. Except for maybe Stone. Yeah, actually, I think it took so long because we both played Servitor decks that I built. And I tend to build very control-y decks. And so everybody was just sitting at home inventing gadgets and being very passive about everything. So ask me. Come on, do me now.
So, Michael, how booted are you today?
Oh man, I'm booted. I sleep a bit less than I usually do in the last few, I think it's been about 2 weeks. Because I went to eBay and I found somebody who sold his wargaming collection. And there were a few Solitaire wargames in there. And I thought, oh, what the heck, let's try this Solitaire wargaming thing out for a change.
Okay.
And it turns out it's really fun. And the problem is, when you don't have to arrange with your friends to meet at a specific time and date, it's like every evening I can ask myself, maybe I do have 1 hour left to play a little Solitaire wargame, you know? It's like drinking, basically. If you want to, you can do it every night. But you should be careful because you're going to lose sleep.
Yeah, but with drinking, you might lose more in the long run.
Yeah.
If you drink every night.
You can lose a lot then.
Yeah, you brought this, what is it, an 80s war game?
Yeah, it's from 1983. And I'm going to date myself here, but the game is older than me.
Cool, but not older than me.
Nope. It's called Ambush. And it's actually the one solo game that I bought that I haven't tried out yet because I'm a bit intimidated by the rules. But it's a very interesting concept. I hope some people know this game. And if you do, please send us in your experiences with the game and if it's even worth me learning the game and putting in the hours and hours of reading about how to capture German officers and stuff. So the conceit is you are in France, 1944, and you have a squad of American soldiers. Hans, how would you describe the central mechanic of the game, the components?
It has punch cards, which you slide through a mask, where you can kind of decipher the next move of your enemies. Pretty interesting. It looks like these. It's a combination of a war game and those. How are they called? Fantasy fighting books.
Yeah.
Fantasy fighting books.
Where you choose next.
Yeah, either you go to into a room, then you go to paragraph 176 or something, and so on. So that's basically a game. I think I've never known any game like this, or do you?
No. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a little bit like that. Because you in that game you look up addresses of people and then you go to that paragraph for your case and check out what kind of situation you find at that specific address, you know, whether there's somebody who can tell you something interesting or not.
So is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective also with these conditions?
No.
That when you go to a certain place, then the textbook changes?
Yeah, so basically to elaborate a little bit, accompanying the game is a special book of paragraphs. And there is 1,000 paragraphs in there. And every so often the punch card that you use will tell you whenever you enter a new hex to maybe read a paragraph. And the paragraph could be nothing. Sometimes it's you move past the road and you see a bird flying by. Without trying to spoil anything, I think in the first scenario, depending on where you go, you can sometimes watch a German and an Allied plane fight in the sky. And it has nothing to do with you, but you can find out who's winning if you move in the right directions. And so for every scenario, there's different conditions and they change. And usually I think they have to do with the level of alertness of the Germans, because sometimes you're trying to sneak up into a village. And then when you start a firefight, maybe the condition might change. And then you put another punch card in your mask. And it means that when you entered a building, you could ambush a German officer and he wouldn't put up a fight. In case you've already been loud and fired shots, it might be he's already run off the map, or he's trying to run off the map as you find him. So that's really interesting.
Might there be a possibility that you could capture a shot-down pilot?
Yes.
If you wait long enough?
There is a card in the game that says shot down US pilot. So I assume at least one scenario, you can capture a shot down pilot.
Ah, okay.
Or rescue.
So it's not like if you watch the birds long enough, you might rescue the US pilot.
That could be. And there's actually a counter of a downed plane that I've punched.
Okay, so you never know.
You never know.
How to get there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep you updated on how we like the game. And if you know the board game Ambush, please do tell us about it, because I am thrilled. On to our agenda. For today, we're going to recap the Kickstarter, talk about a few of the recent tournaments. There has been some reader mail. And as our main topic, we would like to talk about our first experiences playing the servitors in the game. So Kickstarter, it's done.
Yeah, that was huge. I think there were $171,352. I would never expected that much money. I have never backed a single Kickstarter, so I'm no expert in Kickstarters, but I almost $100 per backer. So we bought the kind of deluxe Kickstarter pack with the trunk, and that was about $70, you just said. So the mean backer had to buy even more.
Yeah. There have been some people going for the motherloads who went fresh into the game. So probably those weigh in a lot. But it's interesting because I wouldn't have expected so many new people to show up.
No, me neither. I think it's pretty interesting, and I think for the living card games, it could be a way for developing these kind of games in a company independent fashion. So that's pretty interesting, I think.
So do tell me about Team Covenant. They have their own podcast, and it's really good. It has great production values, and I think they are very insightful guys. And to a certain degree, they should be, because they are in the business. And they
definitely
have a brick and mortar store themselves.
And in their podcast, they always discuss the topics really matter to them. So they are really in-depth discussions, which I really like. And their recent podcast was about the Kickstarter problem, they called it. Also, they gave some tips for podcasters how to get a better ranking. So that's
really,
yeah.
What should we do?
No, that's why they call it the Kickstarter problem. Because this is like a catchy title, and I think the bots know this kind of title. And if there's the word problem, and then you get a better ranking.
That's good.
Yeah, so you have to be always very, even though there's no Kickstarter problem, or they just wanted to discuss Kickstarters and LCGs and those kind of things.
Man, I think I know how this episode is going to be called. Continue.
Yeah, they were actually discussing about LCGs and if they could be supported by Kickstarters. And I was always thinking of Doomtown, because it's kind of LCG run by Kickstarter. At least by the first Kickstarter. We don't know whether there will be a second. I immediately thought, why? Maybe there's one Kickstarter every year to get some new cards. And then you could kind of slow burn the game.
And in Team Covenant didn't say it was possible to do that.
No, I don't think so. They said it's more for the board game community, your stuff you're buying, Gloomhaven and the other game
That shall not be named.
That shall not be named. Because it's too
Death monster.
because it's too expensive. Yeah, so for like miniature games and stuff like that, and I think the Doomtown guys tell a different story.
You know, it was nothing where you could like really sink your teeth in if you are a devoted fan, like so many other Kickstarters have, where if you really want to get everything, you're going to pay $500 or more.
Yeah.
Because that's a normal thing. And that's how some Kickstarters grow so absurdly high in a positive manner. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it wasn't like this in There Comes a Reckoning. And still, it was a really successful Kickstarter.
And I think it's good that they the stretch goals weren't like some new. They might have invented new cards like for just maybe like in 2 days or something, but they didn't. They just sold their developed cards and not like some rush extra stuff. And I think that's a good sign
because it's so honest. Just saying we have a lot of cards. We want them to be in the world everywhere. So here we go. Because in a lot of Kickstarters, I get the urgent feeling when somebody goes like, oh, and the next stretch goal is going to be 2 more cards. And then it's going to be even more cards with the next stretch goal. I'm pretty sure he just designed all the cards and then he split them up,
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And
he should.
It's a bit artificial.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they didn't go down that route. And I really like having the errata cards available to everybody now. That's great. I'm kind of torn on the alt arts, but maybe that's just my capitalistic mindset saying like, but I earned my promos. Now everybody has every promo out there. So all in all, we are glad that the Kickstarter turned out so good. There's 1,763 people apparently who actively engage in this game, which is great. That's a lot more people than I thought would play Doomtown Reloaded.
Yeah, me too. Do you know when they will arrive? In March? Or?
I think it was planned to be March. But usually I add at least 1 extra month just so I don't get disappointed or run out of patience. Because there's so much that can go wrong in the production process.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's often not in the hands of the people who produce the stuff. You can't have everything under control. And sometimes ships get stuck in customs. And, it's a mess. So March would be great, maybe April, we'll see. On to our next segment. There's going to be some tournaments. There is a World Championship.
Yes. I think it was announced recently, like last week. This time in the UK.
Yay!
In Manchester. And at a place called Fanboy 3. Will you be there?
Maybe. I'm actually thinking about it. May is a good month for me to travel,
It's right in the semester.
Yeah, well, I will have finished my studies.
Ah, yeah, you will?
Well, just like in Kickstarter, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. But if it goes according to plan, yeah.
Okay, then you are free to travel.
Yeah, I'm just going to be, out of work, looking for a job, and traveling the world playing Doomtown Reloaded.
Yeah, so, Manchester's actually not that far away.
Nope. Have you already set the date?
No.
No. So it is on the 5th to 6th of May at the Fanboy 3 in Manchester. So go ahead, listeners, and mark that in all of your calendars. And some more public service announcements. We're not going to give you all of the details, but if you are in the United States, there's going to very soon be the Servitor events in a few of the states. At least. There's probably going to be more events, but those are the ones we could find online for now. In late October and early November, there's going to be events in Michigan, Illinois, Florida, and Indiana. And if you live in any of these states, you can find the dates and the exact place on the Pinebox Entertainment forums.
And our Servitor event will be a little bit belated. So it's at the end of January when we will travel to Copenhagen to meet the Danish guys and the Swedish guys for another fun tournament. So I think it will be at the Bastard Cafe, the 20th January.
And we're going to be there.
Yeah, we will.
Nice. Okay, so these are the tournaments we know of so far. If you are organizing or taking part in a tournament and you would like us to get the word out to maybe reach even more people, feel free to send us in your tournament dates and places, and we're going to talk about them on air. On to the reader mails. There is 2 items of interest. We did I think the hip kids call it call for action on Facebook, which basically just means you ask people to do something. We have posed the question how our listeners liked the way the Kickstarter was handled and how it turned out. And they had the following to say. Mark Geisler said, "I'm very excited for the direction the game is going. Pinebox has been doing an incredible job and Pinnacle is really offering some exciting deals for Deadlands fans. I'm so glad to see my favorite game get harrowed again. I've really enjoyed how active the lead members of Pinebox are with the community on Discord." Jay Jester, which is his alt ego.
Maybe his Discord name.
Probably as well.
Are you on Discord?
No. I think I have a Discord account because I had a Shadowrun role-playing group that had some members in the room and some members via Skype.
Okay.
And sometimes when Skype had these funny days where nothing would work, we would use Discord.
Ah, okay.
But I haven't been really active. But it seems like for a lot of games there is active chat rooms where there's almost always people.
Yeah, I had this on my phone. It's a little bit like IRC chats in the day. Yeah, but maybe more sophisticated.
That was the kind of chat platform that runs on punchboards, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You should punch your messages into, yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad that Jay Jester mentioned the Deadlands stuff as well. It's really nice how they used this Kickstarter to offer stuff for Doomtown and Deadlands players.
What's the stuff which was offered in other Kickstarters too? In like Deadlands Kickstarters or not?
The books?
Yeah. Or the adventures and stuff?
The adventures are going to be new. The source book for Gomorrah is going to be new.
Okay.
And the other books, those have been there, of course.
Ah, okay.
And all the other PDFs you could add as add-ons, those have been there before.
Okay.
But there's genuinely new Deadlands stuff, which I found very cool and also very unexpected.
Card games and role-playing games are like some very distinct groups. Many people do both, but I think maybe with Doomtown it's a thing. You play the role-playing game, and that's why you play the card game. It would be not like in Netrunner, you just play Netrunner. There's no Netrunner role-playing game.
How is it with Legend of the Five Rings? Because there is a role-playing game. Have you played both?
I've played Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game in the D&D 3rd edition variant.
All right.
And I had a couple of source books. I really liked it.
Nice. Okay.
And I played Legend of the Five Rings just with the one starter in Paris for a couple of times.
Okay. Nice.
But I think it changed now with the new version. So yeah, but maybe that's the case too, that you have like this evolving world where you have the role-playing game. It's more about the world, maybe with Doomtown too.
Because I think for Doomtown, I haven't yet found somebody who plays both.
No?
No, well, I have both. I have the Deadlands books, but I'm not actively playing it at the moment. And I wonder if there's people who really do both. Probably.
I really like fluff stuff for the games. So with Arkham Horror, they are really maybe overdoing it a little bit with like offering books and stuff like that.
Yeah, novels.
Novels, yeah. So
oh, wow.
Novels combined with promo cards. This is like, I think
that's the way to the dark side.
A little bit like
Imagine
that.
they start doing Deadlands novellas, and then you also get 2 new cards that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, you have to read the book, otherwise you'll...
It's kind of icky. I've read a Deadlands novel recently.
And?
It was okay. It was called Adios Amigos, and Migo was written like, the Lovecraftian creature.
Okay.
It was interesting. It's pulp, but it was fun.
Okay, cool.
Oh, well, anyway.
But you didn't get any special cards?
No special cards involved.
No Migos now in your deck?
No, but they did for a time, they did novels that also included the Deadlands adventure. So you could jump in where the novel left off or replay the novel with your role-playing group.
That's a good idea, huh?
I think that's a very good idea.
It's not like that you have a board game and now you sell novels for it too.
Next one's for you.
Okay, there was Joe James. And he wrote... Exceeding all expectations, it was clearly a huge success. This is exactly the shot in the arm Doomtown needed, and it is clear we can expect more releases after this one. It's been a long time since I've been this level of excitement in the game, and as someone who has never, even for a moment, lost the fire, it's very refreshing to see that fire in others now. Okay, and there it is. Shall I say it with the...
Yeah, the post continues. What does he say?
Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Now want to hear that in a German accent. So, that was already with a German accent.
Hans, what is rubber baby buggy bumpers? I have no idea what it means.
But it's, I think, a scene from Last Action Hero. Is it?
Oh God, I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Okay, so it's. I think it's said by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Like all great things.
Yeah, like all great things. And I think it's in Last Action Hero where he had to say it again with a German accent.
Really? It was in the film that somebody said, say that with a German accent.
Yeah.
No way.
So he said like rubber baby buggy bumpers or something like this.
You've seen those movies where they say, make my day, or I'm your worst nightmare. Well, listen to this one. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Ha! You didn't know I'm gonna say that, did you?
Well, thank you very much, Joe James. Yeah, well, it seems people are really pumped. And Robert Campbell said,
I'm pleased with the move to fewer, larger expansions, as laid out in this Kickstarter update.
And he gave us a link.
This will make it easier for people to have Doomtown among several games they play. The pre-constructed decks Pinebox are planning sound great too, as a way to encourage people into the game.
I didn't know that, do you?
The pre-constructed decks?
Yeah.
No, they must have listened to our our deck building episodes and thought, oh, that's a good idea. No, probably not.
No, but pre-constructed decks, I think the Netrunner game has pre-constructed decks. The World Championship decks.
Yeah. That is...
And I think a Game of Thrones too now.
Oh, that's good. That's actually a really good idea. Although it's always funny because it's fun to play those decks against each other. But with Netrunner, in every case up until now, I think in the next year, those decks have been illegal because they changed the most wanted lists, which is kind of the restricted list. Mm-hmm. And so these decks, you couldn't really play them on your regular gaming nights, except when people just allowed you to do it.
Maybe it's not a good idea not that good idea to take the World Championship decks. Maybe you should, construct decks which are fun. I think in Magic it's the case, huh?
Yes, Magic has these really great deck duels, which was basically where we have stolen the idea of making two decks that are specifically designed to play against each other and be fun when you do that.
And that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
Balancing and fun.
Yeah, also he talks about how slowing down the card release cycle will make it easier to play Doomtown as one of several games, which is a very interesting thought. Because
there has been a lot of debate too about this topic, the slow burn and the there are changes coming. For example, in Legend of the Five Rings, they will release 6 chapter packs. No, they are not called chapter packs. Whatever.
Samurai packs.
Samurai packs or whatever. So 6 packs in 6 weeks.
Oh, man.
And they do those kind of packs. They are kind of driving the story forward. Mm-hmm. And they are for the tournament in this kind of month. And I don't know when the next 6 packs are coming, but then there will be maybe a deluxe expansion. And this is really fast. The problem was with a Game of Thrones or Netrunner that you will have 1 pack every month. And then you will use maybe 1 card from the pack. And that's really slow turning out.
But that always implies that you have already played with all the cards that have been released so far. Which I think is the case when you say, this is the game I play. And I play it every week with the same people. And I'm very devoted and I'm building decks in my free time. So I think Fantasy Flight, with this rapid release, they kind of try to get the people to make Legend of the Five Rings the game you play. And then every week a new pack will be released and you really have to step up your game. You can't really stop playing the game for a week because then you're going to miss a lot of cards and other people will have tried the new decks and you haven't tried them yet. Whereas with Doomtown, I really like the idea of it being one of those games that you like to play, but maybe not as your only game, because there isn't as many people playing it. You cannot go to tournaments like every few weekends, as it is with games like Netrunner or maybe Legend of the Five Rings now.
Or Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and Magic, of course. And I think when you have a game like Doomtown Reloaded that is a bit niche, I think it's
a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a smart idea not to try and force people to have it as the only game they play actively by releasing cards really fast. And
yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, so just like to have it in your repository, like with us. There's some kind of tournament in Copenhagen, and you say, "Oh yeah, that would be a fun place to go and play Doomtown." So they are moving out of this kind of lifestyle thing where you have to play them every week and think about them constantly, but just collect your miniatures and have a fun weekend. Maybe many people don't have so much time for it, anyways.
Yeah.
Just to commit like all your free time to deck building and tuning and only playing the maximum cards, the cards which are valid in your group or something.
I think I like this development.
For us, it's actually perfect, well.
Totally. Because we play a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and everything else would be like, it would be just too much. And you have still 96 scenarios in Gloomhaven to play.
Oh, God. 95. We already did one.
So, yeah.
When did gaming become so much work?
I don't know.
Okay.
Since Kickstarter.
We have one more mail from listener Muad Dib or Corey. This one is a little bit longer, and it also contains a different way to play the game, which we haven't tried yet. If you are interested in trying out this variant that he provides, we're going to put the rules and copy-paste them into the show notes, so you don't have to write along. But we're going to read it out now. Howdy, Buddha dudes. I thought Doomtown Reloaded was deader than the time Kyle Wagner was eaten and digested by mutant cattle. Turns out I was wrong about the card game, and maybe even Kyle. Is it possible to become herald after being digested by demonic cows? I guess we'll find out. To pass the time until the new expansion comes out, my wife and I got creative and came up with a story-driven, scenario-based, flashy way to play some Doomtown Reloaded. We used the story Trouble Ahead, Trouble Behind that you've talked about in previous episodes. Hans, which episode was that?
I don't remember.
I have no idea. We created 2 decks, Sloane Gang and Law Dogs, facing off on Election Day, using only cards from the core set up through Election Day Slaughter. Here's how it works. The Sloane Gang starts with the outfit The Sloane Gang as their starting home and Charlie's Place, which is free. Angelica Espinosa starts perched at Charlie's Place, and you have to pay her cost of 3. The Law Dogs start with the outfit Law Dogs and Hustings, which is free. And Sheriff Montreal starts at Hustings, and you have to pay the 9 ghost rock that he costs. The remaining ghost rock from both sides is used to pay for dudes that will be placed at their respective outfits like in the regular game. Place Wilber Crowley and Roderick Byre, for newer people those have been the 2 candidates to become the new mayor for Gomorrah, in Town Square. They are under the control of the Law Dogs and act like normal dudes in all ways, except politicians cannot call out dudes, politicians can be called out anywhere, including at the home, and if a politician is discarded, they are aced instead. The leader of the opposing shootout gets a permanent +2 control point bonus. Or, if you want to play a longer game, try +1 control instead. We've played a few games this way and had some pretty exciting and thematic outcomes. It's a different way to play, and maybe some of your listeners will come up with some other scenarios based off past stories and post them. We look forward to new cards and your future shows. Kickstarter backer number 1047, Corey.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea, I think.
Really good idea. Thanks for writing in, Corey. We have to try that out, Hans.
Yeah, we have. I think scenario-based play, we never thought about that, actually.
No.
But I think for Doomtown, it works well, because you can lay out a map already and then play on the map. So
we could even use miniatures and measuring tape.
No. In artillery support.
Yes.
In air combat.
Yes.
No, you can't.
Yes. And zones of control and supply chains. No, but we will definitely try out the scenario. And maybe we can come up with a scenario of our own. Man, I would really like to see the fight of Tixaglanak against those orphanage children.
Yeah, so Tixagrak against Willa May or what?
Yeah. And the orphanage.
And the orphanage.
Which is also a dude.
And Sloane.
Oh, man.
That would be cool.
That's some great stuff. We played a few games with the new servitors and not yet with the new cards because I am a very lazy person and I couldn't yet bring myself to copy and cut and put into nice sleeves all of the new cards.
Me neither.
So just getting the 4 servitors was, I think, enough to try out some new stuff. So we built some decks and we faced them off against each other, which might not be a great benchmark because now all the decks we play are really janky and weird and we should really try and play them against some run-of-the-mill Sloane Gang or Deed Slide just to see how they actually fare. How about we describe our decks a little bit and talk about whether we think the servitors have earned their keep in the decks?
I played an Arsenal deck, which had a lot of things like Jagen's Mechanical Skeleton and Biocharge Neutralizer and the Power Fist. How's it called? It's not 40k. Hydro Puncher. So
Hydro Poncho, I think.
Hiding Poncho. Okay, doesn't matter. So it's basically a gadget deck with the Servitor, the train guy.
The guy with the train.
Yeah, that was actually, I was surprised that you could reliably get so many weapon gadgets and so fast, so many weapon gadgets on your dudes and become really like 6-star and stuff like that. That was cool. The Servitor itself didn't have such a big impact on the game, I think, because I didn't really win any shootouts against you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a way to gain control points, to ace people, of course, but it didn't have such a big impact. But it's not that expensive card. It's just -1 starting income, so it shouldn't be that bonkers.
But I think it's important for the deck archetype to be able to gain inevitability in the end. Because with a gadget-oriented deck, you probably don't have a lot of dudes, but the dudes you have are really good at fighting once they have had some time. And I think against other decks, you could sometimes have the problem that you're not mobile enough, and they have a lot of dudes, and they have a lot of deeds, and you cannot really gain inevitability to win in the end. Whereas I think when you are able to go into their home and call out their dudes and punch them to death and then gain control points for it, that might be an easier way to win a game, because you're not going to put your mad scientists on every opponent's deed because there's not enough mad scientists and not enough weapons.
Definitely, yeah, you might be right.
But the problem is, I think we never got to that stage of late game. So I think you invest the 1 Ghost Rock, so your opponent knows that in the end, if they cannot rack up control fast enough, you are going to have your own win condition of punching people.
A fun way to play it would be like a hit and run tactic. That you run into a fight, just punch, or you have to just discard a guy. Then he's aced, then you get the control point. So you just win by a slight margin, punch somebody, get 1 control point, and then like sneak out to accumulate control points. Maybe like that.
So maybe it's not in the deck that we played, but maybe you could build decks that use kidnapping and stuff. So you just have 1 job every day in Gomorrah.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
You target a dude, and then when he tries to defend, you get a control point anyway by punching somebody.
Or like with, how is he called? The Hanging Judge.
Somerset.
Yeah, and the card.
The good old-fashioned hanging.
Yeah. So then you have like double tapping on control points, huh?
Yeah. Or maybe we should explore that.
Maybe a good idea, I don't know.
So do you think he is an auto-include in gadget decks, or do you have to build your deck around it, or is he not worth the 1 Ghost Rock?
I think he's an auto-include in weapon-oriented gadget decks. There's also movement-oriented gadget decks with Ornithopter and stuff like that. I think every gadget deck includes Jagen's Mechanical Skeleton, and that's a weapon. So as soon as you have that around, I think he might be an auto-include. Although the income, the -1 on starting income is actually quite hard because the guys are expensive. The mad scientists are expensive.
Yeah.
So maybe even -1 could be a liability.
Maybe less in Morgan, where you have more cheap mad scientists. But
Kyle Wagner,
and Kyle Wagner.
he's dead.
I tried something different. I have built a Gateway to Beyond Eagle Wardens deck that has Reverend Grimme as a servitor. And Grimme has this passive ability that every spell you cast is going to be more expensive for every copy of the same spell already in play. So this deck includes a wide variety of janky and weird spirits that I've never gotten to try out before. Like there is the Crafty Hare, the Sun-Touched Raven, the Turtle Guard, and some other things. And most of the spells I play just 1 or 2 times. The idea of the deck is that you put your shamans somewhere in a deed that possibly has this chick something weaving where you can gain control points. And you just cast a lot of spells. And you can use your outfit to make the spells available again and cast them again. And in the deck, I think 3 or 4 times there is showboating. And every so often you will have a low difficulty spell like Turtle Guard and you cast it successfully and maybe you pull showboating or maybe you have showboating on your hand and then you can play it for 1 ghost stroke and you gain a permanent control point and those control points can stack. So that's the idea. Basically have 1 or 2 secure places with your shamans and then cast stuff until you gain control. Turns out there was a few problems with that as well. So for one, for showboating to work, you need to have a difference of 5 from the spell you try to cast and your actual pull. And the shamans I used are all of them had Shaman 0. And when you have so many different spells, I was surprised how often I would pull the Crafty Hare or the Sun-Touched Raven, which are very low value cards. And sometimes it's really, really important to not mess up this one spirit. But I found that what I really liked was I was surprised how well Strength of the Ancestors worked.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong card.
Because you can use it to be on your deed where you have the weaving anyway, so you want to defend it for the control point. Also with the Gateway to Beyond ability, you can cast this 2 times in 1 turn and you will be a +6 bullet stat, which is a lot usually.
Yeah.
So the Strength of the Ancestors for people who cannot visualize that card right now, which I think should be a lot of people because I haven't seen it played so much, is a Noon Spirit. And when you successfully cast it, you gain +3 bullets, you are a stat, and you cannot be booted or sent home booted anymore as long as you stay where you are. So it's a blockade card. I tried it out in Town Square, that's really fun. I tried it out in the Deeds where I have my weaving to generate a control point every turn, that was fun. And I think it's kind of good to use Grimme for a deck like that because you have so much tutoring. You can just, spells like this, you always want to cast them as early as possible in the turn. And then when you pull a spell, you can use Grimme to attach it. If you never pull a spell, you can still boot your shaman and search the top 5 cards of your deck for another spell. When your shaman doesn't want to move anyway, because he has +3 or +6 bullets, as long as he stays where he is, it's not that bad to be booted. I think for a deck like that, Grimme is very much worth 1 ghost rock.
Definitely, yeah. And actually, I didn't, as your opponent, I didn't have the feeling that you are like driven by inconsistencies. You had this, I think, during most of the time you had this out, the Strength of the Ancestors, because there are so many spells and you tutor so many spells, you will get them anyway. It wasn't really a problem, was it?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of wondering whether maybe the deck would be better if I just played Strength of the Ancestors 4 times.
Yeah, maybe.
And didn't use Grimme and just had a more consistent game plan to always do that one thing. It can kind of help maybe for a tournament when you play against different decks, because against some decks it's important that you cannot be booted, and against some decks it's important that you can create more influence with your ancestor spirits. So I kind of like having the variety, but it's not very consistent.
Yeah, but as your opponent, I didn't have from my view, it wasn't like that, because you had all your spells ready. And that it's a lot of draw, and there's not so much draw in Doomtown. It's actually kind of tutoring draw, which is even better.
Yeah, so I think for spirits, not for totems, unfortunately, but for spirits, Grimme is very viable. And also, I guess for miracles, I still cannot really think about hex decks because I think I would always want a few hexes and then have a lot of copies of those. Because I feel like hexes aren't generally as utility based.
No. And sometimes you have to have high pulls because you have to get over some value and stuff. So you have to, normally you would, with hexes, you would have like really like a tight draw structure with really high values. Yeah.
So I think Grimme is also very viable and well worth one Ghost Rock. It's not a big investment. And having to pay more for multiple copies hasn't turned out to be a problem either.
No. Because you can basically play like Strength of the Ancestor. You play for free the first time. Mm-hmm. And you get the card for free, sometimes at least. And you've been spellcasting all over the place. I think you were doing it like 4 or 5 times per round. Per day.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm doing this spirit. So actually it was quite, was a fortune that you didn't hit showboating more often. Because you're,
might be. But I can tell you, at least the showboating, have all the spirits and then cast them twice each turn deck is at least fun to play. Mm-hmm. We have yet to see if it's really viable. But so I think the 2 servitors we tried are really good designs. Mm-hmm. I think Ezekaya Grimme forces you a bit more into one route, which is have a lot of different spells. Mm-hmm. Whereas Dr. Darius Hellstromme, well, it forces you to play gadget weapons.
Yeah, you have to.
Instead of other gadgets. Mm-hmm. But within those constraints, I think they are very strong cards for one starting Ghost Rock. And I think we're going to see a lot of play with them.
Yeah. And they are not imbalanced, though?
No.
At least for now, for our casual approach.
No, they don't seem that way to me. So, great designs. I think we'll keep at it.
We're looking forward to testing the next ones.
Nice.
Okay, so
we'll return in a month.
Yeah.
And
good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. You can send in your questions, feedback, or comments to booteddudes@gmail.com or on facebook.com/booteddudes, all in one word. Music used with kind permission from Wellbad. You can find them at wellbad.de or facebook.com/wellbadmusic. Please, if you like this podcast, consider writing a review with text or just the stars, because it helps other people who are looking for podcasts about Doomtown Reloaded find us on iTunes.